Hey, good morning, and welcome back to Taylor Time Live. I'm your host, Seth Gladden, and in the next 30 minutes, you will hear up-to-date top news stories, and we'll be continuing our series on the biggest challenges facing the flooring industry, so you're not going to want to miss it. Now, in case you did miss last month's Taylor Time Live, we had some well-known guests who gave their insights on what those challenges are, so go check it out on our YouTube channel. We have an exciting show planned for you today, featuring some incredible insiders as we talk about supply and demand. And remember, you can always submit your questions at any time by texting the number on the screen. I think. Yes, there you go. We'll text that number. For today's insiders, I'm joined by Brett Miller with the National Wood Flooring Association and Jeff Gordon with the Fuse Commercial Flooring Alliance. So we're excited about that. But before we jump into that, do we have Jeff? We're having some technical difficulties. We have Jeff? Okay. So before that, we're going to turn to our media partner segment in the news. This month, I'm joined by Jeff Golden with Pro Installer Magazine, and I don't think we have his camera working, but we've got him on audio. We do? Okay, so Jeff, we're excited to have you on the show. Jeff?
Opportunity to be with you today. I wanted to talk
Jeff,
about...
let me interrupt you. Can you flip your camera real quick? You're sideways
Okay.
for us. There
Is
we
that better?
Go. That's better. Thank you.
Okay. Just having problems.
No worries. Hey, thank you for joining us, though, for sure. And so Jeff is the editor and co-publisher of Pro Installer Magazine. So Jeff, great to have you here. What are some of the top stories in the news going on right now?
Seth, I think three top stories are hitting the flooring industry. One, installer education. It seems like we're finally getting to, we're building installers joining this industry.
Okay.
Two, I wanted to talk about the National Installer of the Year finals at the recently concluded TICE show.
Yeah.
And upcoming trade shows and conventions.
Okay. Yeah. So those all sound great. So let's start with, you said the FCEF, the training effort that they're doing. Let's talk a little bit about that. So how is that going? I know that they just opened a school recently, and that's been tracking along. So tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. Their first effort began in January, on January 10th. It's a 10-week course held at the Georgia Northwest Technical College. This took a lot of effort, through the entire industry.
Yeah.
First of all, what this is, it's the FCEF. The goal is to spread awareness, recruit, and scholarship training for future flooring craftsmen.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean it's a huge issue facing us, and we'll actually be talking about that in a later edition as well. But I mean, flooring installation is a big job, and there's just not enough people doing it. So it is exciting to hear about that, and know that they're trying to help tackle that. So we wish them well with that training effort for sure. Speaking of installation and training, those who are absolutely excellent at it, Jeff, let's talk a little bit about the TIES installation competition that just happened out there. Was that only 2 weeks ago?
That was just 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
This year's competition was a little different. In June, they held the semifinals, and
Okay.
there were four participants that were invited back in the resilient and carpet categories to the February competition in the finals. And with that, you actually had a repeat winner, Chris Sessoms,
Yep.
from Linwood, Washington, winning the carpet category.
Yeah, for sure.
And
Congratulations to Chris.
uh, also Dave Bradfield of Anderson's in Oakland, California, won the resilient category.
Yep. Well, congratulations to Chris and Dave. I know that has to be stressful to spend 2 days standing, kneeling, laying, however they had to get that job done. I think we saw a combination of all of that. So great job to them, and definitely excited to see our industry continue to push excellence when it comes to installation, and encourage excellence. So that's exciting for sure. Jeff, speaking of ties, 2022 is in full swing at this point, and we're hoping that things with different COVID strains continue to stay low and continue to decrease. So we're hoping for a great year. Surfaces went really well, but what do you see coming up for trade shows? What do we need to keep our eyes on, and how do you feel the balance of the year is going to go?
I look for continued opening of conventions and trade shows throughout the year. In the next quarter, we're looking at the FCICA annual convention to be held in Biloxi, Mississippi, March 21 to 23. The covering show for the ceramic and stone industry will be held this year in Las Vegas, April 5 to 8. Okay. And the NWFA show will be held in Tampa from April 12 to 14. Seth, I want to mention that these events are information about these events are up on our website, piprolink.com. And, we offer stories about them, speakers, keynotes, and so forth like that. So I invite everyone to go to the website or pick up Pro Installer Magazine at your local installation supply distributor throughout the U.S. and Canada.
Perfect. So piprolink.com, is that right?
Right. Yeah, okay. That's correct.
Or check out Pro Installer Magazine. You can see a list of upcoming events. Make sure you stay current. Jeff, thank you so much for joining in today and telling us what's going on in the news, keeping us relevant. I hope you have a great rest of the day and great rest of the week. And but for those viewing, don't go anywhere. We're about to jump into our supply and demand. So thank you, Jeff. Now let's talk about our. Yeah, absolutely. You're welcome. Now let's talk about our topic for today, which is continuing our series on the biggest challenges facing flooring installation. Today we are talking about supply and demand, and if you remember last month, if you did watch, we had some great guests on. One of those was Brett Miller, and so we want to bring Brett back in, and we're going to talk about this topic and answer some of those questions that were raised last time. So, Brett, great to have you here. Hey, Brett, I cannot hear you at the moment. Just a second.
Sorry, how about that?
That's better.
All right. Sorry about that. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate the opportunity to join you guys.
No, we're really glad to have you back again. So, I think your mic is maybe cutting back out.
Oh, can you hear me okay?
I can right now, but we'll see. We'll hope that holds for us.
Okay.
So,
I'll keep my fingers crossed.
Well, hey, last time we had you on, you talked about this topic of supply, price increases, some of the stuff that's affecting currently, right? So I want to continue that and kind of dive into that. So as you're within WFA, you know a lot about the wood flooring, you know a lot about flooring in general, but
right.
Is there a shortage of wood flooring products right now? Let's start with that.
Well, I think it's contrary to popular belief, and any contractor you talk to who's out there in the field will tell you there's a shortage. There's a shortage of material, because if I go to my distributor and I need some 2 1/4 strip flooring or whatever the product is that's specified, it's not available. And the supply has really been decimated. But it's not that there's a shortage of material as much as the supply demand issues have really, through this entire pandemic over the last couple of years, have really tweaked the way product has been brought to market. Pre-COVID, wood flooring sales were really slightly down, and I think a lot of our manufacturers prepared for that. They prepared for that by bringing in inventory that they knew would sell based on historic, the historic sales of the products. Then all of a sudden, COVID hit, and through home improvement projects and everything else, as just about everybody in our industry saw, demand went through the roof. People were in dire need and wanting remodeling their homes and everything. So it's been a balance through our manufacturers of how to meet that demand, and that's really been a big driver for product. So I would say that no, there's not a shortage, but it's been a supply and demand balance that we've seen affecting the availability of wood flooring across the industry.
Yeah. So so it sounds like there's been a lot going on. You mentioned that even though there's not necessarily a shortage, it's hard to keep up with the demand at the same time. So what would you say, is that driven by pricing, or what are the key things going into that?
I think there's a few drivers behind the demand, and I think clearly we've seen people renovating their homes, adding to existing floors, and wanting to upgrade. In doing so, I think we've seen, at least from our side of the industry, we've seen a surgence in higher quality wood flooring products. And I think a lot of the temporary options that were out there, where people might be buying something that might be a temporary floor covering option, they're actually looking at bringing back to wood. So we've seen a huge increase in the demand for wood flooring. But I think a lot of this demand is really driven by people wanting flooring in their homes, and flooring contractors just unable to handle the amount of projects that are out there. So we're seeing, obviously, a lot of this is affected by labor shortages. It's affected by shipping. It's affected by a lot of different things that are causing these demands and lack of ability to really drive in. But contractors' biggest issue that they're dealing with, you go in, you put a bid or an estimate on a project, and next thing you know, by the time the project hits, the price of that material has doubled or tripled or quadrupled in some cases. And there have been multiple reasons for that. I think today the most prominent reason that everybody can lean on is inflation, and how cost of everything has gone up. But the costs of materials, there are various reasons for the cost increases, whether it be some of the tariffs on some of the materials coming over from Canada, or whether it be the shipping issues that we ran across in products coming from overseas being held up at ports, really affecting product, and seeing product that's stuck out in the ocean and not able to go to market.
Right.
But a lot, with the lumber side of the industry, we see a lot where the flooring manufacturers are actually bringing logs into the yard. It takes time for the product to actually dry down. And when demand is high, it can take 90 to 120 to upwards of 200 days for a product to dry down to be able to be usable and cut into flooring product. So now you've got a delay in the ability to bring product to market, which, couple that with a shortage of labor and the shortage of ability for people running those lines to cut wood into flooring, the price obviously goes up, the cost can go up. So there's a lot of reasons.
Yeah, what are you seeing in the world of cost? You just mentioned, sometimes you'll put a bid in, and then all of a sudden when the project comes around, it's double or triple what it was. So we have all these price increases happening, but how is that affecting business in general, and specifically existing contracts? I mean, that's got to be a tough conversation, right?
Absolutely. I mean, back in the day, I was just talking to a guy earlier this week. Back in the day, you have a bundle of 2 1/4 strip oak flooring that was the most common and still one of the most common solid wood flooring products sold today. If you had an extra bundle or two left over, you throw it in your warehouse or who knows, maybe even turn it into firewood.
Right.
But today, you bring that back to your distributor and you're looking at a premium $100+ on a bundle of wood.
Wow.
That cost has increased significantly. And I don't even know where to go with how that cost is going to find its balance or equalize. Obviously, the only way prices go back is through friendly competition through manufacturers, and I think that's going to probably start happening as the supply continues to fulfill the demand requirements. Big question is cost gonna follow suit and go back down to where it once was? And I think the big answer for not just wood flooring, but every floor covering and really every product we deal with on a day-to-day basis is no, it's not going to go back to where it once was. Hopefully it'll find a balance and not be so inflated as it is today, but it's hard to see where it goes.
So you have the unique position or perspective, maybe I should say, of being with NWFA. So you guys have all of these companies who are members, right? So you have a very, let's call it a global perspective on this. What would you say is the overall consensus of your members regarding the current demand?
That's a good question, and you're right. I mean, we represent the entire supply chain of wood flooring, of the wood flooring industry. That's a really good question. I think overall consensus is demand is going to continue increasing. There's no concerns with the demand for wood flooring going down. I think the biggest challenge is, no contractor wants to bid a project. No distributor wants to sell wood for a project. No manufacturer wants to sell product to the distributors to get out to these projects and then lose the projects because the product's not available. This is business 101. I think it's, the demands are going to be there. We have seen, because of some of the overseas shipping restraints and concerns we've had with importing products into the country and all of the political mess that goes along with that, we've seen quite a resurgence in domestic products and people figuring they'll, buy North American products. And it has really given rise to the idea that it's going to be available. We don't have to worry as much about, the potential for increased shipping costs or products being held up at ports. When we know the product is grown, manufactured, and harvested here, in North America. So I think we're absolutely seeing a resurgence in the popularity of wood floors. But I think most importantly, we're seeing that growth based on the potential for supply to help meet those demands.
Okay, well that is hopeful news for sure. And it sounds like there's a lot of work happening domestically to try and overcome some of this supply. So that's a good sign too.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of, and thank you for giving us this insight on wood flooring. Obviously, like I said, you have touch points way outside of wood flooring as well. But we do have Jeff Gordon with Fuse, who's joined us as well today. Brett, don't go anywhere. We'll have you back on soon. But Jeff, there you are. Great to have you. Jeff, I do not hear you yet either. Let me see. Try one more time for me. There we go.
I was just saying greetings from Southern California, the home of the Los Angeles Rams Super Bowl champions.
Yes. Go ahead, rub it in our face, right? No, well done to them. It was a good game. It was actually a good game to watch. So, but Jeff, great to have you here. Obviously, Brett, like we said, represents a lot of or all of the wood flooring. You, on the other hand, are kind of that commercial world, right? So you have touch points, and all of your members live in that world. So let's talk about supply and demand over there. How would you say, as Brett mentioned, we've seen a ton of price increases, right? So how are your members handling those price increases?
And let me say one thing before I get into that is,
Sure.
excuse me, is we do have our meeting coming up the first week of March 6th through the 8th. So Fuse Alliance has their annual meeting in Dallas. And it's interesting, the karma for us is the last time we got together was 2 years ago, and it was a week before California shut down for COVID. And now I feel, just like Jeff mentioned some of these other shows, is we're coming to the end of Omicron. So I think the timing for us is really good. And of course, to get the group together live makes just an enormous difference. So we're super excited about that.
Good.
And
Yeah,
anyway, to
that
answer
will be
your question, I mean, we represent the commercial world. Fuse Alliance is a network of commercial flooring contractors across North America. I've been in this business 40 years, and I've never seen anything like what we've seen in the last 2 years. We have so many headwinds, price increases. There were 5 last year commercially. There's been 1 already this year. There's more to come. Then you have the delivery delays with price increases on delivery. And living where I live, I can see all the container ships outside of LA and Long Beach harbors. At one point, there were over 100. I mean, it's just
That's
hard
so
to
crazy.
believe. Yeah, but the point I wanted to make is, given the headwinds that we have, the price increases, the delivery delays, business is very good. So,
Well, good.
We finished last year up about 20%. We started off in January up about 30% of the prior year. So we think this year is going to be really good. Now, with that said, we talk a lot. We talk a lot with our members about how to handle price increases, because we deal with general contractors. We put a proposal out, but we have to sign the general contractor's contract, meaning we're bound to whatever their contract says, which in most cases is the price is the price.
Yeah.
What we've learned through experience is communication is key. So we recommend to anybody in this business, you've got to be communicating to your customers. You've got to be communicating to your suppliers. And generally what we found is they're a middle ground. So the suppliers have been great in regards to trying to hold prices as much as they can. They've been excellent partners. We're so grateful for them. And we've had dialogue with our customers where they're giving us some relief. So, we haven't been able to mitigate all the, lost profit because of price increases, but we've been able to manage it. And in our world, a contractor's building a building, every trade on that building is raising prices. Every material has gone up. So, we can't be afraid to talk about it, because it's not like the contractor, when they get a phone call from us, they know what we're calling for, because who knows how many other calls they had the same day or the day before. So I think it's just something that has to be managed, and it's a real world thing. And our suppliers are telling us that there won't be any relief probably from delivery and pricing issues until near the end of the year and maybe into 2023. I mean, this is going to be around for a while.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think you're right. So Jeff, you talked about some great things there, but let's talk about delays for a second. How do you see these delivery delays affecting? I'm sure that's causing issues, right? So how is that working? How are your members getting around that?
Well, there's a couple of things about that. Like, one of the questions I get asked first off is, have you had jobs that have been canceled, because of either price escalation or delivery delays? And the answer is pretty much no. I mean, the projects are moving forward. And, remember, in our world, everything's being delayed. It's not just us. So, we communicate. Again, it's back to communication. So what may happen is, we'll ask, for a release of the material, meaning, okay, let us order the material, because we're getting a lead time of 8 weeks, which could expand to 12 or 14. Let's get an order in. And what we ask you to do is, if we receive delivery and we can provide proof of delivery, then you need to pay us for the material. So we'll store it for them. In other words, that's been a way to go about it. And that same thing applies for price increases as well. If you want to avoid a price increase, let's bring the material in early, and we want to be able to bill and be paid for it. So it's just a matter of being in front of all this. I would say the biggest challenge we have when it comes to delivery delays is not the delay itself. We just need the supplier to keep us up to date. And I would say, by and large, the suppliers have done a great job. So the worst thing for us is, we have a quote date of April 10th. The material is going to ship April 10th. we call and check on April 9th and find out it's been delayed to June 15th.
Right.
That's a problem.
Yeah.
And again, very few manufacturers we deal with let that happen. But as long as we're being communicated with and they're telling us, hey, just a heads up, this order is going to be delayed an extra 2 or 3 weeks, we just have to stay in front of it. And as long as we all work together, it seems to be working.
Yeah, well, that's good news, and I think you hit it exactly where you should have. Communication is absolutely key. I think, we're not just seeing supply issues in our industry, so which is both a blessing and a curse, right? But the blessing is that people are used to that conversation. They're used to, unfortunately, those delayed expectations, right? So,
right.
Jeff, do you see? I know you don't have a crystal ball there with you today, but do you see these delivery delays easing up through the balance of 2022?
Well, again, as I mentioned, the suppliers are saying probably not by the end of the year. I mean, there's two things going on in our industry, and I know Brett touched on this. One is, raw material and just basic material supply has been a little challenging. And the second thing has been labor. So I know some of the plants in Dalton, Georgia, for example, several people get COVID, they go out. So they're not going to be able to work. Then you have other people that are like, well, we don't want to come in because COVID's running rampant through the plant. So they immediately have a labor shortage that they have to manage. That slows production down. So there's been so many variables going on affecting what's happening. It's hard to make any commitments. Now, it looks like we're over the hump on COVID, knock on wood, that, we're getting that somewhat behind us. And I do anticipate that business is going to continue to be good. So there'll be a crunch on raw materials and, just managing all this. Because remember, we're flooring contractors. We have to put the job together in the beginning and then get it installed in the end. And in between, you have all these logistical challenges, a lot of which are, the job's behind schedule because the wallpaper guys are out sick or they can't get drywall or whatever the situation is. So one of the things, my new quote for this year, Seth, is our members are very upbeat, but very beat up.
Yeah.
And I think that really sums up, our industry right now.
Yeah.
Business is very good, but in the same breath, business is very hard.
Yeah. Well, and that's a good way to sum that up. Let's bring Brett in for just a moment. We're getting close to the end of our segment here today, but let's pair him in. And I just have one. I'm going to give you guys each one question to each other. So Brett, I'm going to start with you. Do you have one question you want to ask of Jeff, and then we'll flip it around?
Boy, that's good, Jeff. You just hit so many topics.
I like to talk.
Well, that's good. I guess my big question to you would be, and you hear about the ports there in Long Beach and LA. I mean, has it subsided? Has everything started flowing a little bit back to what would be considered normal, or are there still backups?
Well, they were supposed to go to 7 days a week, for delivery. I think I just lost Brett. They haven't been able to attain that, but it's better. Is it normal? No, it's not normal. So, and I don't suspect it'll be normal for a long time.
And I've heard 2023 and even into 2023 quite a ways before we start seeing something that would be considered normal again. So, yeah.
I mean, this is the craziest thing ever.
Yep.
It is.
So now I'm going to flip it, Jeff. One question that you have for Brett.
I would ask him, and he already kind of covered this, but just to reiterate, you see it easing up. I'm saying you're the same way about by the end of the year. You're in the same boat as us.
Fingers crossed. Yes. Yeah. I mean, the beauty of it all is that everybody's busy, and I think you nailed it when you said everybody's beat up, but they're going in stride. And I think the biggest challenge we have today, and I'm glad that Jeff at the beginning talked a little bit about the training efforts going on with what FCEF is doing, and we're seeing it through a lot of our trainings also. I mean, if we could figure out this labor shortage and get people to fulfill the labor side of this, from manufacturing through to the installer, I think that's where we start seeing it. And I do feel like we're starting to see that uptick. We're starting to see some tides change a little bit.
Yeah,
good.
And I'm on the board of FCEF. And I think we've made a lot of progress.
Absolutely.
Well, Jeff, Brett, that's all the time we've got for today. Thank you guys both so much for being here. We've learned
You're
a
welcome.
ton of good information.
Well, thank you.
Enjoy California for us and keep us updated on those ships, Jeff. So,
For sure.
so no, seriously, thank you though. That's all the time we've got. Just a special thank you both to Brett and Jeff with NWFA and Fuse. Also a thank you to Jeff Golden with Pro Installer Magazine for partnering with us today and giving us our media segment. If you haven't already, I invite you to just go check out our brand new website. We just launched an update to that last month. So go check that out, download our free mobile app, follow us on social media, subscribe to our newsletter, and don't forget every third Tuesday at 11:30 a.m., come spend 30 minutes with us for Taylor Time Live. Thank you for joining us today. I'm your host, Seth Gladden, and remember at Taylor Adhesives, we are with you every step.